So the rain has deterred our young boys, our Pinehurst boys.
Or maybe icy conditions on the...
Icy condition, maybe?
Could be ice, so they're afraid.
Yeah.
I didn't say.
Jai Saparikar Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Radha Govinda Jiu Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Jai Shri Nishringa Bhagavan Ki Jai Jai Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Mahabhagavad Srila Gaurkishore Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sada Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Sarup Damodar Roy Ramanandari Go Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sigo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvadashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Ketra Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Shri Nrsinga Dev Ki Jai Bhakta Prabhu Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Charu Dham Charu Sampradaya Charu Acharya Ki Jai Akaramat Raj Shri Chaitanya Mat Ki Jai Varananya Shakamat Samuha Ki Jai Shri Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Judaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayati Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Pradaya Te Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Trishe Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Pradedevi Satyavachai Namo Namaha. Panchatattvaatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak, Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my Dandavat Pranams to all of my Sri Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga. And my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So Sri Upadeshamrita, the third sloka of Sri Upadeshamrita, which is describing the six favorable activities for developing bhakti. 6 favorable activities. And we've worked our way through all these essays of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We're at the final item, and that is called Sato Vritte, or Sadhu Vritti, the behavior, saintly behavior of the Vaishnavas. We should develop that. This is a very extensive commentary on that one item. We've been reading it for a few weeks already. Of course, I'm sometimes giving an entire lecture on a few sentences, you see. But, nevertheless, it's a very long. And I've been looking at the coming pages, of which there's something like 20 more pages on this topic. But it's very interesting because Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's quoting continually from Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the way through. A few other places as well. But actually what he's doing is he's extracting the actual spoken words and the lessons that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave, or that he demonstrated himself, right? Mahaprabhu's own example and it's being taken from Madhya Lila and Antya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I realized that in order to truly study this, at least for my own personal study, I'll have to actually open up every single time that he quotes the verse, any verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I will have to take the time to look at that verse and the whole context of it. A lot of that I'm already familiar with, but I mean, Chaitanya Charitamrita, very extensive. And you gain so much, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is basically quoting, he's quoting like one verse, an instruction that Mahaprabhu gave. But what were the circumstances and to whom did he give that instruction? You see? That's all very, very interesting. And if we really truly want to study all this commentary that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving, then we will really have to do that. But that's very time consuming. I could do it in the class, but probably take another 2 months to complete the next 20 pages. Because I'd get into the actual pastime or the actual story like that. So there's different ways of studying. But to me it's very astonishing how Bhaktivinoda Thakur has actually given an opportunity for devotees who haven't yet even read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but yet he's picking out all these different instructions of Mahaprabhu and relating it to this one single activity, sadhu vritti. You see? Because Mahaprabhu's whole life is an example, and also his devotees. Mahaprabhu also taught so much through his devotees. Even sometimes chastising his own eternal associates, his devotees. There are quite a few pastimes of that, where the devotee apparently did something that was not to the liking of Mahaprabhu. But there's many, many deeper and inner meanings. Just like, for example, we're going to be reading that, about how Jagadananda Pandit wanted to give some comfort to Mahaprabhu by making a mattress filled with cotton and so forth. Simple, because Mahaprabhu would not accept anything extravagant. As a sannyasi, he was extremely austere. Right? Extremely. So there's a whole pastime in which Jagadananda Pandit, who was actually, it is said that he had the mood of Satyabhama. Not that he is Satyabhama.
I thought it was Satyabhama.
What?
I thought it was Satyabhama.
No, it's Gurudev clarified that. Because he's actually a Manjari. But that mood of Satyabhama manifested in him. And then he brought a pot of, you remember?
Oil.
Very beautifully fragrant, scented oil, right? For Mahaprabhu's massage. But how did Mahaprabhu react to that? No, he didn't throw it.
He gave it to her. That's right, she threw it.
He gave it back. Who did he give it to again?
It's somewhere there that
Govinda.
to give to Jagana.
Yeah, something like that, right? And when Jagadananda found out, he went there and in a fit of anger, he threw the whole pot and broke it. Very expensive oil. So that's showing his mood of attachment to Mahaprabhu. And even one time he was going to leave. Or was that Gadadhar Pandit? I'm trying to remember. No, I think that was Gadadhar. Oh yeah, but he sent, Mahaprabhu sent Jagadananda to Vrindavan to meet Sanatana Goswami. And there, again, his mood came up of anger. You know how that happened? No, not a pot. No. It was a turban, a cloth, that Sanatana Goswami was wearing, which was kind of dark orangish red, which was the color that Mayavadi sannyasis would wear, right? And somehow this was given to Sanatana Goswami, and he was wearing it as a turban. And Jagadananda just became livid with anger towards Sanatana Goswami, who's far his superior and everything, right? And he was about to almost like attack Sanatana. And Sanatana saw the love in him. He saw how attached is Jagadananda to Mahaprabhu. He cannot even tolerate that even the color of the Mayavadis will be worn by his senior leading devotees. Huh? So all of these lessons are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes sadhu vritti, all based upon great attachment, great deep attachment and love for Mahaprabhu. So, anyway, let's move on here. Well, I'm on, I'm on page 220. You see that? Okay. Now, going back one page, we went over that paragraph for 3 whole days, right? About how one is to gradually diminish his state of performing Vadi Bhakti and enter Raganuga Bhakti. So that's a whole topic, and I'm really considering reading the entire Manasiksha and sections of Raganuga Bhakti from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, so that we'll really clearly understand this topic, you see. But anyway, then, yesterday we were talking about Gyan and Vairagya, because the last paragraph on that page says that householders should endeavor for Gyan that is related to Bhakti. And also, they should endeavor for Vairagya that is caused by Bhakti. What is Vairagya? Yes, renunciation. But renunciation that is caused by Bhakti. You cannot find more renounced personalities in this world, practically in history, as Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was so extremely renounced, and it was even told that his renunciation was like the lines on a stone. The lines on a stone, they cannot be erased at all. His renunciation was so firm. Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, also similar to Raghunath Das Goswami. But where is that renunciation mood arising from? We know that Mayavadi sannyasis and impersonalists who are cultivating the path of Gyan for attainment of Sayujya Mukti, merging into the Supreme, they are also extremely austere. But even their austerity, it cannot stand up against the extreme vairagya of the highest devotees who are absorbed in Krishna prema. Their renunciation is not produced from a desire for liberation whatsoever. Where does it come from? Extreme separation mood in prema from Radha and Krishna. Absolutely extreme separation mood. Just like we know that the Braja Gopis, after Krishna left Vrindavan, they didn't bother to dress themselves, bathe, anything. Complete, absolute detachment from the material body and whatever gives it gratification. So Raghunath Das Goswami and the other 6 Goswamis, they are described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, their lifestyle while they lived in Braj. And they barely slept 1.5 hours. They barely slept, even 1.5 hours. Can you bring a chair over there for her? You want to sit on a chair?
Yeah, is this okay if I sit right here? Oh,
It's better over
wrong
there.
part.
It's better over
Okay.
there.
I'm sitting
Or
over here.
wait. Here, what you can do, you can move over here, and then you can sit there.
All
You
right.
don't have to move anything.
Okay, thank you.
Or there, whichever you prefer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, what was I saying?
1.5 hours.
1.5 hours. They forgot to sleep. It was not that they were trying not to sleep. Their sadhana was so intense and they were so absorbed in Krishna prema, they forgot to sleep. They forgot to eat. Sleeping and eating. So, here Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been instructing in this matter about Gyan and Vairagya. And yesterday at the end, we read the next verse that he's quoting from Madhya Lila 22, 145, on the top of the next page. Gyan Vairagyadi Bhaktir Kabu Nahe Anga. Gyan Vairagyadi Bhaktir Kabu Nahe Anga. That means Gyan and Vairagya are not limbs of bhakti. We've already had quite an extensive discussion about the limbs of bhakti, of which there are how many? 9. And also 5 prominent. And also 64. Okay? But Gyan and Vairagya, they are not limbs of bhakti. Now, he's telling that there are certain qualities, certain characteristics that become observed in pure Vaishnavas. They're also not limbs of bhakti. What are they? Ahimsa, Yama, Niyamadi, Bule Krishna Bhakta Sangha. Here he says, non-violence, ahimsa, control of the mind and the senses, yama, niyama, the observance of certain regulations and so on. Intrinsically, they are all intrinsically present in Krishna Bhaktas. So we have to understand this deeply. How bhakti is the basis of everything. There's a whole nother topic concerning what is the terminology again? Sangha Siddha Bhakti, Sangha Siddha Bhakti, Swarup Siddha Bhakti, and what was the other one? Arup Siddha Bhakti. Those 3. They are variations of bhakti depending on how much this bhakti is pure. For example, Arup Siddha Bhakti. Gurudev talked about this quite a bit because he was trying to instruct the Western devotees that you may think that something is bhakti, but it may not be bhakti, or it may be a certain form of mixed bhakti, or it may even be karma. It depends on various factors. So in the case of Aropa Siddha Bhakti, let's go over this for a few moments. What does Aropa mean? Aropa.
Dovetail.
Kind of. I mean, that's like one way in which it can be described like that. But actually, aropa means to superimpose something. To superimpose something on something. And aropa siddha bhakti is an imposition of something. What is that something that you're imposing? Your desire. You're superimposing your desire on bhakti. Okay? So many examples can be given. Just like in the varnashram system, according to different varnas, different qualities and characteristics of a person, they have a tendency to perform work. Kshatriyas, brahmanas, they have certain type of work that they're qualified, and they have certain qualities, characteristics, right? So everyone has things that they like to do. Some people like to garden. Some people like to look after cows. Some people like to cook. Some people like to compose songs and play on instruments. Now, can that be done for Krishna? Can you look after cows for Krishna? Can you garden for Krishna? Yes, you can. But what makes that activity bhakti? What makes it bhakti, and what disqualifies it as pure bhakti? When I say bhakti, we're talking about pure bhakti, uttama bhakti. And therefore, Rupa Goswami, he is given the definition of it, right? The definition. So, any activity that is to be considered uttama bhakti will have to follow each and every requirement that is in the definition. And if it doesn't follow that requirement, you cannot call it uttama bhakti. But yet, our acharyas have explained that it can be called bhakti in a particular way. That's why there are these variations of mixed bhakti, okay? Now, for a very neophyte person, they have so many material desires. So, it's accepted that, oh, you like to do deity worship, okay? You can do that, it's according to your nature. You like to cook, you like to clean the temple room floor, you like to go out and cut wood, right? So all of that, all those activities, some persons like to do those, and some persons don't really like according to their nature, right? Or even according to their physical ability, you know? So can you go and cut wood? And can that be considered to be bhakti? By bringing out the wood splitter and cutting all these pieces of wood and loading them and moving them and doing all that heavy labor work. Can that be bhakti?
Yes.
Okay, yes. It's being said, yes, it can be bhakti. How can it be bhakti?
Doing it selflessly.
Selflessly? What does that mean?
For the needs of the Lord and the temple, not necessarily for our own needs.
Yes. That's almost. Actually, anukulyena Krishna anushilanam is the bottom line. Yes, it certainly is. That's what determines whether it's bhakti or not. You see, Gurudev, we traveled with him all over the world, many, many festivals over 15 years, right? And at each festival, practically, he would always quote this verse, Anya Bilashita Shunyam, the definition verse. Then he'd say to us to stand up and explain it to the audience. But in the beginning, I remember we were in Russia actually, and he told me to stand up and explain it to the audience. So what I did was I started explaining that verse from the first line. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavitam. And then Gurudev stopped me. And he said, that is not how you explain this verse. First you have to state the Swarup Lakshan of Uttama Bhakti. Then you can describe the Tatastha Lakshan of bhakti. So what is Swarup Lakshan and what is Tatastha Lakshan? What is the meaning of the word Swarup Lakshan?
The essence of the verse, the bottom line.
The Swarup Lakshan means characteristic. What is the Swarup Lakshan of bhakti? What is the Swarup, meaning the primary characteristic of bhakti, right?
The bottom line.
Like Swarup means it's the very Swarup of bhakti. So that's called the Swarup Lakshan. And the other parts of the verse are describing the Tatastha Lakshan. And what does Tatastha mean? It means secondary or marginal characteristics of bhakti. So I learned on that day never to make that mistake again. And I learned that you have to describe the third line. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttama.
You explain that one first.
Yeah, that's what I learned to explain first. Because Gurudev said, first you explain the Swarup Lakshan, not the secondary care. Anyabhilashita Shunyam. You don't start with, oh, you are devoid of any other desires. No. What is the actual Swarup Lakshan? And that determines whether it's Uttama Bhakti or not. So, what does that mean? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam.
Incessant, never.
You have to explain each word of this line. You have to understand it very deeply, each word. And to do that, you're going to have to read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, where it's all broken down. There's a few pages to explain the meaning of that one verse. But what does anukul mean? Anukul. The word anukul, what does it mean? Favorable. Yes. It is favorable for Krishna. Anukul Krishna. If it is not favorable for Krishna, it's not bhakti. Doesn't matter who you're making it favorable for, you or anybody else, is not bhakti. Unless it's favorable for Krishna. Now, Anukulyena Krishna, then comes the word Anushilanam. You know the meaning? Anushilanam? Shilanam, anyway, he breaks down each and every syllable, Shila, like that. But the main thing is that it is a cultivation. It is a cultivation. Now, how is it cultivated? It's cultivated in your mind, with your senses, with your words, and your emotions. All four have to be there in that activity, which is Anushilanam, and Anu also means under direction, under guidance of Sri Guru and pure Vaishnavas and Shastras, Anushilanam, and Anu also means constant, unbroken. Bhakti is not that all of a sudden, boom, I just did bhakti. And then the next moment, you go back down onto your own material desire level. No, that can never be Uttama Bhakti. Because Uttama Bhakti is 24 hours constant, unbroken. The example, pouring oil. When you pour oil, olive oil or whatever, it comes out in an unbroken stream. Right? So, unless bhakti is constantly being performed for Krishna, and what does that mean? Is it for Krishna's pleasure? Is that what it means? For Krishna's pleasure? No, because we made that mistake in front of Gurudev. And he said, no. This is not the proper understanding. What the definition, what the actual understanding is that Anukulyena Krishna means for Krishna's benefit. If you say it's for Krishna's happiness, it's not accurate. because then that would rule out so many activities of even his eternal associates like Mother Yashoda, who made Krishna very upset when she put him down, breastfeeding him, when she ran to save the milk on the stove. That didn't make Krishna happy. It made him upset. But was it bhakti? Yes. Why was it bhakti?
Favorable for Krishna.
How was it favorable for Krishna's? For Krishna's benefit. How was it for Krishna's benefit?
I should say the milk. Milk would be used for sweets.
Yes. Yeah. That item, the milk, boiling over on the stove, everything Mother Yashoda does is for Krishna's benefit. Everything. 24 hours a day. You see? So if we say that it's for Krishna's happiness, then that rules out even pure devotees who are making Krishna unhappy. Making Krishna upset. Yeah? Even Mother Yashoda can twist Krishna's ear. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, she can whip him with a stick. But it's all topmost prem bhakti. Uttama, uttama, maha uttama bhakti. You see? So, coming back down to the average level of a neophyte devotee, the objective is that we're doing bhakti, that we're actually performing bhakti. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Govinda Ki Jai. There's a quotation from the famous commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam named Sridhar Swami. Sridhar Swami was living before the time of Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu told that no one can deviate from him. No one can deviate from his commentary. So, Sridhar Swami has been quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu that what constitutes, in a simple way, what constitutes the act of bhakti? Like, if someone is cooking in the kitchen and they're stirring the pots and they're doing all the different activities of cooking, what makes that cooking bhakti? When you're cooking it, and then you're taking it after it's been prepared, putting it on the Lord's plate, then you're coming and you're offering it with mantras and so forth to the Lord, and waiting for Him to eat, and then after that you take the plate away and so forth. There's one particular characteristic that if it's not present, then it's not pure bhakti. Now that's not unusual, because for neophyte devotees to perform pure bhakti is quite rare. Quite rare. But they perform other types of mixed bhakti, and that's favorable for their gradual development. But what we're talking about here is Sridhar Swami's statement. What actually makes this activity, whatever the activity may be, what actually makes it bhakti? In this case, cooking and offering to the Lord. What actually makes it bhakti? And if that's not present, then it's not pure bhakti.
The mood?
Yeah, but which mood?
Love and affection.
No, it's very specific.
Humility.
It's no. It's a particular, very simple mood. You're offering the bhog to the Lord. But what makes it pure bhakti? I'm going to tell you now. Sridhar Swami says, pure bhakti is that you are offering yourself in that activity. Your very self is being offered to Krishna. That can apply in cutting wood. It can apply in any activity when your very self is being offered to Krishna. Then it can begin to come into the category of Uttama Bhakti. See? So, the sadhakas are endeavoring to become gradually more and more qualified and more pure in their execution of the limbs of bhakti. And it requires that we pay attention with our mind, with our words, with our actions, and with our very emotions. And even the emotions are broken down into different categories in the explanation. So, I'm going back to the original point, is called Aropa Siddha Bhakti. If someone likes to play a guitar, a violin, a flute, a harmonium, mridanga, anything, because they have a musical nature, they like to sing, you know, I mean, that's an activity of happiness for the human beings. To sing, to dance, to do all these things, right? But even in performing the activity of kirtan, of singing the songs of the acharyas, of, you know, leading artik or doing kirtan with a whole congregation of devotees and so forth. But how will that singing become actual bhakti? Because I've already explained in one class, Gurudev told to Kishore Mohan and Sudevi that you are performing Sangeet, music, but I will teach you how to do kirtan. And I've heard them tell about the specific instructions Gurudev gave to them, and they themselves, they have a very wonderful presentation actually when you hear about how this changed their lives. And it happened over a period of years, you see. So real kirtan has to be full of the moods of pure bhakti, right? Not that I'm doing kirtan because I want to show everybody how nicely I can sing or any of this. If that's there, then it may even not be Aropa Siddha Bhakti, it may be karma. You know that? Our acharyas have even gone to that extreme. It may be karma, because you're doing it for your own self. But when that activity is done under the guidance of pure Vaishnavas, in service to them, and with the moods of, you know, of glorifying the Lord, not tinged by your own desires. That's a high order for neophyte devotees. But yet, we are told we must start to do that in our life. Okay? So all of this is hinging on following Upadeshamrita, especially Nam Bhajan. Because if one is not doing that, there's no possibility of being able to perform those other activities purely. Everything is depending on Nam Sankirtan, Nam Kirtan in Kali Yuga. This is the main limb of bhakti in Kali Yuga. So if someone is not attentively trying to follow the instructions of Guru, to chant, and to do the fundamental activities of bhakti in their lives with sincerity, even if they're not perfect, but they keep on endeavoring. They keep on trying. You cannot stop trying. Just like Nam Aparad, there are 10 offenses to the holy name. So in the beginning stages, the neophyte devotee is performing so many aparads while he's chanting. But the instruction is to endeavor to give up the aparads and continue chanting. So if somebody is not doing that, then their progress will be halted, practically stopped. They have to continue. Srila Gurudev used to say that bhakti is like a river. Remember? A river is always flowing. And therefore the water always remains pure, because it's always flowing. But if somehow the river stops flowing, whether it's dammed up or whether it's dried up or whatever, then that water will become contaminated. So he said, bhakti is like a river. One has to always keep that water flowing by performing the activities of bhakti every single day, you see? And this is the key to success. This is the key. Any questions so far on this topic? Okay. So now, just see what is now the next topic. Householder Vaishnavas must give up the 10 types of Nam Aparad and constantly chant Krishna Nam with faith. By this, one achieves Krishna Prema. Krishna Prema. So now he's quoting from Antya Lila, 4th chapter. Bhajaner Madhye Shreshta Nava Vidha Bhakti Krishna Prem Krishna Dite Dhari Maha Shakti. So this is the first verse. There's 2 verses quoted. Bhajaner Madhye Shreshta. That means among all forms of bhajan, the 9 limbs of bhakti are the best. Shreshta. Bhajaner Madhye means amongst the bhajan activities, Shreshta, the best of them are what? Nava Vidha Bhakti. 9 limbs of bhakti. Okay? So all those 9 limbs, what are they? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Now, he just said amongst all different activities of bhajan, Shreshta, the topmost is Navavidha Bhakti. And Krishna Prem, Krishna Dite Dhari Mahashakti. Mahashakti means great power. Mahashakti. Yes. Why is this Navavidha Bhakti powerful? Because Krishna Prem, Krishna Dite. They have the great power to bestow both Krishna Prem and Krishna himself. These 9 limbs of bhakti have the power to bestow Krishna Prem and Krishna himself. Then he says, Tar Madhye Sarva Shreshta. Now, amongst those 9 limbs of bhakti, Sarva Shreshta, that means the topmost limb amongst them is what? Nam Sankirtan. Tar Madhye Sarva Shreshta Nam Sankirtan. Among the 9 processes of bhakti, chanting Harinam is foremost. Now, what happens? Niraparade nam loile pai prem dhan. If one chants without committing any offenses, niraparade, that means without aparad, okay? Niraparade nam loile, if one is taking the holy name without performing offenses, then what happens? One easily receives the treasure of pure love for Krishna. Krishna Prem. Now I ask you, do you believe this? Do you believe that Krishna Prem can be attained simply by chanting with great faith and without committing the 10 offenses? Do you believe that the highest treasure that's available in the entire creation can be bestowed upon you if you do that activity consistently and you strive towards doing it more and more and more without committing the offenses? With great faith, Krishna Prem can come. Yes? Krishna Prem is very rare. We should not think that it's cheap and anybody can get it. just by chanting. No, you have to chant without offense, with great faith. That is the prescription given here. Mahaprabhu himself is telling that. So, householders, so that's what he's telling about the chanting Krishna Nam. Very good lesson for us. Actually, chanting is a very wonderful thing to do. Why is it? Why is it wonderful to sit and chant the holy names of Krishna? Huh? We have devotees here that have been chanting for decades. They're still chanting. Maybe they haven't chanted yet pure Krishna Nam. Certainly, they have chanted Nam Abbas, no question about it. And maybe even in one moment, Gaur Govinda Maharaj used to say this, pure name may have even touched. But yet we go on chanting. Why? What is the motivating factor? You can't continue to do something unless you're getting something very positive from it, right? How can you just continue to do something?
It awakens relationship with Krishna, yeah?
Absolutely. Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayoja. And, you know, that Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of relationship, this is also in Harinam Chintamani, there's a whole extensive explanation by Haridas Thakur. And he's speaking to Mahaprabhu because Mahaprabhu asked him a question. Then he began his entire dissertation on how to chant without committing the 10 different offenses. He goes over each and every one of them, how to avoid them, all of that. Harinam Chintamani, which is considered the sequel to the Jaiva Dharma. So, first thing is that when one chants with Sambandha Gyan, then that chanting has very strong effect with Sambandha Gyan. What is my relationship with Krishna? But it's not only relationship with Krishna. Sambandha Gyan entails your relationship with everything. I'll just explain this briefly. There's a pyramid, okay? On the top is Krishna, Ishvara. On one corner is Jiva, the living entity. And on the other side is Prakriti, this material nature, Prakriti. So, Krishna, Jiva, and Prakriti. Sambandha Gyan has 5 different aspects, interrelations, 5 different interrelations between these 3. Name them. You can envision in your mind. Name the 5 different interrelations.
Ishvara with the Jiva.
Yes, that's number 1.
Ishvara with Prakriti.
Yes.
Prakriti
2.
with Jiva.
Yes.
Jiva with...
No.
No.
The first 3 are easy. Because we know that the living entity has a relationship with Bhagavan. We know that the living entity has a relationship with the material nature. And that the material nature has a relationship with Bhagavan. But what are the other 2? The other 2 are Jiva with Jiva and Prakriti with Prakriti. That's 5 different types of Sambandha Gyan. All of this is necessary. Without studying and hearing the Tattva Gyan given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth, the devotee will never become conversant with the topics of Sambandha Gyan. You have to first of all hear it, but then you have to apply it in your chanting, in your bhajan life. You have to have that knowledge. Because, so, like, take for example, the relationship between Ishvara and the Jiva. all religions are trying to put forward their understanding or their theory of what's the relationship between God and human being. Right? Right? But when one understands who is Ishvara, the full topic of Ishvara. Now we come to the Dasmul Tattva, the 10 essential principles. We have to go deeply into that. The topic of Ishvara. If someone does not know the form of the Lord, then their ability to interrelate is quite stunted. It's absent, because the Supreme Lord is a person. But even if they say he's a person, but they don't know what he looks like, then it's not very easy to cultivate that relationship with him. Also, if they don't know about, just like in Dasmul Tattva, Amnaya Praha Tattvam, Harir Iha Paramam, Sarva Shaktim, Rasavdim. There are 3 different tattvas. In the Dasmul Tattva, these 3 tattvas are pertaining to Hari. First of all, you have to know that Hari is the Supreme Absolute Truth. Hari means Krishna. Hari means the Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the first thing. Amnaya Praha Tattvam Harir Iha Paramam. That he is the Paramam. And he is Sarva Shaktim. All energies, spiritual and material, they all are in him. And he is the supreme controller of all those energies. You barely have any knowledge in Christianity about that. Just God created, you see. But in Bhagavatam, the entire science of all of his energies, all of his Shaktis, his individual Shaktis, and his relationship with those Shaktis, everything is given. Sarva Shaktim. Then, Rasabdim. Here's the next characteristic. The next tattva. Rasabdim means he, that Hari, is an ocean of rasa. Rasa abdi. An ocean of rasa. Imagine that. That's what he is. If you don't know that, how are you going to understand your relationship with him? Now we come to Jiva. Veda Veda Prakasham Sakalamapi. No, wait. Amnaya Praha Tattvam Haririha Paramam Sarva Shaktim Rasavdim. I'm forgetting now, my dull brain. Now it's explained that there are 2 types of jivas. In the Jiva Tattva, one has to understand that there are 2 types of jivas, and these jivas have a relationship with Ishvara of being simultaneously different and non-different. So the jivas, some, they are eternally liberated. They are never covered by the illusory energy. And other category of jivas, there's 2 categories of jivas. They can become covered or they can become uncovered. Those are called the tatastha jivas. Okay? You have to know this about yourself. Like the other day we were discussing the question asked by Sanatana Goswami, who am I? Who am I? He's asking to Mahaprabhu. And then Mahaprabhu gives a very, very extensive answer. What is this entity, this tiny particle of energy called the jiva? Well, these jivas that are in this world, they are of the 2nd category. They can become covered by Maya. but they can also become uncovered. Essentially, there's no difference between the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned. They're called Nitya Baddha. Nitya Baddha means eternally conditioned, but actually it's not eternal. It's just for a very, very, very long time, you see. But we have to understand this tattva if we want to chant the holy names of Krishna with some bandha gyan. Otherwise, how can you pray to the Lord? Oh my Lord, I've fallen into this endless ocean of material existence by forgetting you. Now, I want that you please shower your mercy on me and make it possible for me to approach you again. All these kinds of moods and humility and everything that's required to chant Shuddha Nam is based upon Sambandha Gyan. So, this is our Tattva Siddhanta. Mahaprabhu has given this. This is what he taught. Das Mul Tattva, 10 principles of the Vaishnava philosophy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written verses in the Jaiva Dharma for each one of these. And there's an entire chapter to discuss each one of these 10 principles. You see? So anyone that's serious in attaining the eternal treasure of Krishna Prem through Harinam Sankirtan, they will certainly be very seriously inquisitive to know, what do I have to do? How do I do this? And they will have to read and study all these literatures that will enable them. Now, if someone just chants without knowing anything, certainly there's benefit. We know that. Harinam is giving benefit. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is pointing out that one can chant for thousands of lifetimes and not attain Krishna Prem. Why? Because if offenses are still being there. This is the main factor, the offenses. So therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying householder Vaishnavas must give up the 10 types of Namaparad and constantly chant Krishna Nam with faith. And by this, one achieves Krishna Prem. See, all these instructions, so helpful. Gaur Premanandi. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam pavanebhyo